Hi everyone, it's Tamara here with another card making tutorial. Today I'm doing a quick and simple card with an ink blended background and some Copic colouring using Dezy the pig from Freakin Cute Stamps as part of the new Christmas release. I've printed out my scene onto some Copic XPress cardstock and also included one of the sentiments that comes with the set, and I've just popped the little piggy Dezy on top of the roof climbing through the chimney. Now I'm just going to cut out my mask, which I'm going to use for my ink blending. So I've done that off camera, and now I'm just going to line it up. I just choose one portion, normally one of the smaller areas of the mask, to line up, and then just line that up and slide everything into place. And once I'm happy with it, I'm just going to give it a really good press down to seal that and get ready for some ink blending. I'll be using my Distress Oxides today in Chipped Sapphire, Peacock Feathers and Salvaged Patina, and using my Dome Sponge Applicators to apply my colour. So I'm going to start off with the Chipped Sapphire at the very top. I want to try and avoid getting too much of that Chipped Sapphire near our sentiment because I don't want that being covered up, because obviously I haven't masked that up. So I've gone in now with my Peacock Feathers and just working between the two colours of Chipped Sapphire and Peacock Feathers until I get a nice smooth blend, and just working in circular motions with those Dome Sponge Applicators from Ranger. So now I'm pretty happy with the amount of Chipped Sapphire I've got on. I have come a little bit into that top oink, but I will come back in later off camera just with a pencil, or you can use like a pen or something to go over our sentiment to reinforce that. Now I'm happy with my blend between the Chipped Sapphire and Peacock Feathers, so I'll bring in my Salvaged Patina around the bottom and just work up my way into that Peacock Feathers. So just go back and forth until you get a nice smooth blend. And I just need to just re-go over that top portion of my Chipped Sapphire to make sure it's nice and smooth with that Peacock Feathers. And now I am happy with my Salvaged Patina. I'm going to pull off my mask. Being very careful not to touch that ink blending, and set that panel aside to dry. So now our panel's dry, I'm going to start colouring. So I'm going to put over a layer of E43 onto my roof. And I'm just kind of working on the side of the marker to ensure I get a nice smooth blend out. So kind of working across from the edges so I don't get any of that pen into my ink blending, and make sure we've got a nice even layer of that colour. Now I'm going to go in with my warm markers now that I've set that up. So W8 is going to be my darkest marker. So obviously that chimney is going to be throwing a bit of a shadow, and obviously where these little tiles go over, or shingles go over, it's going to throw a shadow onto the shingles below. So I'm kind of doing like a starry moonlit night. So that's coming up from above, so we'll be throwing a shadow directly onto the roof. So once I've got all of that laid out, I'll bring in my next marker, which is going to be C6, to blend out that shadow, and then go into all of those shadows on the shingles. So just getting that nice and blended. So I'm just going to make sure I've got a nice kind of shine on that top of that top tile, but so that that doesn't look like we haven't actually blended that out. So now we'll go in with the W6 on the bottom shadows, just trying to get a nice smooth blend by just going back and forth over the colours. Because I'm working in like a straight line, it's easier just to go over back and forth. So W4 is going to blend out that shadow, and then we'll fully colour in that top row of tiles and then blend out the shadows of these ones. So just working that marker until we get a smooth blend between each of the colours, and just kind of working on an angle so that we get as smooth a blend as that we can working in that straight line to blend out our shadows. Now for the chimney, I'm going to colour it up. Now initially I was going to do this in a lighter colour, so you'll see me actually colour it up in the original colour I was going to do it. But when I end up colouring up my little piggy, because she is quite pale as well, or Dezy, so Dezy could be a he or a she, but I'm calling her actually a she. When I coloured her up in the light pinks, she kind of got a little bit lost with this really light coloured chimney. So you'll see me come in later and darken this chimney up to match in with our roof. And I just thought that made her pop a little bit more against that sky and against that dark chimney. So now I'm just going to go in and put some shadow. So obviously her head will be throwing a shadow over her body, the bottoms of those little hooves, where her little hat comes over, of her face and her ears, and obviously around her eyes and nose are going to throw a little bit of shadow as well. Now I'm going to bring in my R11 to blend out our shadow colour of our W marker, just slowly working that out into our white cardstock, not forgetting underneath that cute little mouth and where her chin comes over. Our next colour in our combo is R01. So you will see all my colours in the top left hand corner as I colour this through. And then we'll bring in our highlight colour once we finish that chest. Now this will be quite in shadow, so we won't need the highlight colour for that body. We're going to bring in R00. I thought this was a nice soft pink for this cute little piggy. So finally colour in our highlight, and then I'm just going to go in and reinforce those colours. So I did that off camera, but I'm going to colour up these folds in her ears and on her little snout the same way with the same colours, and bring in that R00 to finish off our blend. Now as you can see, this is where I decide that chimney is just that little bit too light, and I really want her to pop against that dark sky and the dark chimney. So I'm bringing those W markers back in again. Obviously she'll be throwing a shadow over the top of the chimney, and then that top portion of the chimney is going to throw a shadow over the bottom part of the chimney. So I'm going to bring that W8 in. I didn't go quite far enough with my shadows, so reinforce those with that W8, blend that out with the W6, so to kind of take that where I'd taken that W4 and extend that shadow down, and then just have a little bit of W4 down the bottom of the top and also down the bottom. And having those other markers underneath still kind of gave it a little bit of a brown tinge to our chimney as well. Now we'll colour up the little eyes to make sure that we don't forget those, and it does look like there's a little bit of shadowing there. So I've gone in with my C markers to add a little bit of shadow, and I'm going to use the same markers on the hat. So obviously the bottom of the hat and the bottom of that little bauble on the end will be in shadow. So that will be the darkest with my C3, but I just went in with my C00, which will be my lightest marker, just to work out where all my shadows are going to be. C1's the next one, slowly building up from the shadow up to the top, where our lightest colour will bring that C00 back in, fill in that bottom section and just bring it up into that top section. And I just want to reinforce the darker colours down the bottom. So we'll bring in that C3 again and that C1. Just slowly filling that in to make sure we get some nice texture to that hat. And push up to the top. Now we'll colour the actual hat itself. So the darkest colour in my combo will be R89. So where at the base of that hat and also where that fold is over, there'll be a shadow. We'll blend that out with the R56. Just slowly doing little flicking motions to get a nice smooth blend between these colours. Our next colour is going to be R35, just extending that fold. And then our lightest marker in this combo is the R32. Now I just want to reinforce all of those, so I'm going to go exactly through the same way, just setting those shadows, extending them out with the R56, and just extending that line of that fold, the R35, and bring that R32 in for our final colour of our highlight. I just love that red combination. Now, to also add a little bit of interest in the sky, I'm going to add some little stars flicked around that beautiful blue blend. Now, I initially used my Jelly Roll pen, but it wasn't showing up the way I liked. So I actually grabbed out my Posca pen, and I always do a little bit of a test on a piece of scrap paper that I've got. And I'm going to do that, and I keep just pushing down on it off camera onto that scrapper piece of paper to make sure I've got some nice flow from that Posca pen. And this just stands out a lot better than what my Jelly Roll initially was. So I'm just going around those oinks, and as you can see, I went over that with a pencil to reinforce that so that they stood out. So just keep dotting until you've got a nice amount of stars in your sky. Try and be random. Sometimes I find if I try and be too methodical, it actually doesn't look natural. So try and just do it roughly and quickly. Now I've attached my scene panel to a light blue card base, which I cut and scored off camera. And you can see just with a little bit of ink blending and some Copic colouring, just how quick and easy it was to make up this cute little Christmas card with Dezy the pig. I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial. If you have, please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see any future videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.